Hi, boys and girls. I'm going to read chapter 6 today of Ellie's story. Chapter 6. Jacob drove us to a large flat building. Several people were outside the front door, gathered into a circle. I could feel the tension in them as we pulled up. Jacob came around and petted me, but he left me in the truck. "Good dog, Ellie," he said absently. I sat and watched him anxiously as he went up to the group of people. What was he doing? Why was he walking away from me? Weren't we going to work? I knew I was supposed to wait patiently for him to give me a command, but it was hard. I whined a little. Several of the people near Jacob spoke at once. "We didn't notice her missing until lunch, but we don't have any idea how long she's been gone." So it sounds like Jacob and Ellie are going to be finding a missing person. "Marilyn's an Alzheimer's patient. Sometimes she thinks she's back at her old house, or that she needs to go to the job that she used to have. She won't remember enough to find her way back. I don't understand how she got away with no one seeing." While I sat there in the truck, a squirrel climbed down the trunk of a tree and scurried around trying to dig up food in the grass. I stared at it, astounded. Didn't it realize that I was a vicious predator? And that I was only 10 feet away? Jacob came back to the cage and opened the door. "Heel," he commanded, giving me no chance to teach the squirrel a lesson. It shot up a tree anyway and sat up there chattering. I ignored it. Time to work. Jacob led me away from the people to a corner of the front yard. He held out 2 shirts that smelled of old sweat, of something sweet and floury. I stuck my nose into the soft cloth, breathing in deeply. "Ellie, Find!" It was just like the park. I knew exactly what to do, and I took off, running past the knot of people. "She wouldn't have gone that way," someone said. "Let Ellie work," Jacob replied. Work. I carried the sense memory of the clothing in my mind as I held my nose up in the air, moving back and forth to pick up the trail. A lot of people had walked across this yard. Dogs had been along the sidewalk. Cars had driven down the street. I could smell all of them. But none of those smells was the right smell. I couldn't find. Frustrated, I turned back to Jacob. He could tell I was disappointed. "That's okay, Ellie. Find." And he began walking down the street, and I leaped ahead. There were more lawns. I dashed up and down each one. Somewhere that smell, the one right smell, that would be hidden. Somewhere that smell, the right smell, would be hidden. I'd discover it. I turned the corner and slowed down. There it was. It was faint, just a hint. But it got stronger as I moved in the right direction. It was tantalizing me, coming to me. I zeroed in on the right trail, and the smell was powerful now. There was no doubt. I had found it. 40 feet in front of me, at the base of the clump of bushes, there was a burst of the scent, perfectly clear. I turned and ran back to Jacob, who had been joined by several police officers. "Show me, Ellie," Jacob said at once. I took him back to the bushes. He bent, poking at something with a stick. "What is it?" one of the officers asked, coming up behind Jacob. "A tissue. Good dog, Ellie, good dog." He offered me the stick, and we wrestled with it quickly, but I could sense that we weren't done here. There was more work. "How do we know what that's hers? It could have been dropped by anybody," one of the police officers objected. Jacob ignored him. He bent down so that his face was near mine. "Okay, Ellie, find." I followed the trails that led away from the tissue. It went about 2 blocks and then turned right, getting stronger. At a driveway, it made another sharp right turn and took me through an open gate. And there she was, sitting on a swing set, moving gently. Her small feet just brushed the ground. There was a real sense of happiness flowing from her, and she seemed glad to see me. "Hello, doggie," she said. Somehow her voice sounded far away, even though she was only a few feet from me. I ran back to Jacob. His excitement surged the moment he saw me. He knew that I'd done my work. I'd found her. But he waited until I reached him before he reacted. "Okay, show me," he urged. I took him to the lady on the swing set, and I felt his relief the moment he stepped through the gate. "Are you Marilyn?" he asked gently. She tipped her head to one side, looking at him. "Are you Warner?" she replied. Jacob spoke into the microphone at his shoulder, and soon we were joined by the other police officers. Jacob took me into the front yard. "Good dog, Ellie," he praised. He pulled a rubber ring out of his pocket and sent it bouncing across the lawn, and I jumped on it and brought it back, holding it out for him to grip and tug on. We played for about 5 minutes, my tail whipping in the air the whole time. Someone new arrived then and led Marilyn back up the street with an arm around her. We followed. I could feel the relief pouring off the people who came out to meet Marilyn, call out her name, and take her inside. She'd been in some kind of danger, that faraway gentle lady named Marilyn. I understood that now. By finding her, Jacob and I had saved her. As Jacob shut me in the cage in the back of the truck, I could feel the pride coming off him. "Good dog, Ellie, you are such a good dog." It wasn't the adoration I used to feel from Georgia, but it was as close as Jacob would come. That was the first moment I really understood my purpose, not just to find people, but to save them. And that was what Jacob and I did together. That was our work, and it was what he cared about most. The next day, our work was back to normal. Wally was hiding on top of a dumpster full of all sorts of trash. Some of it smelled delicious, some smelled awful. But I was still able to pick out the Wally smell. He wouldn't fool me. When work was done, Jacob stopped by a store and picked up some sweet-smelling flowers. To my surprise, we didn't head home. Instead, we drove and drove and drove. It took so long that I got tired of holding my nose up to the wire mesh of my cage. Usually I loved the rush of smells that poured over me when I rode in the truck. It was hard to believe that when I was just a puppy I had been frightened of it. I loved the truck now. The smells came and went so quickly that I couldn't tell them apart, but it felt wonderful just to let them wash over me. But I got tired of that at last, and I lay down on the floor with my head on my paws, waiting for the trip to be over. When Jacob came to let me out, there was a heaviness in him. Whatever was hurting him inside seemed stronger than ever. He had moved more slowly, as if his sadness were something heavy that he had to carry with him every step. I hopped down out of the truck. We were in a big yard filled with smooth stones that stuck up out of the soft grass. Not sure what we were doing, I stayed close to Jacob, but as he walked away from the truck carrying his flowers. Was this work? I didn't think so. Jacob never felt this sad when we were doing work. Jacob stopped walking and knelt down. He put the flowers next to one of the stones. The pain inside him twisted so deeply that tears fell silently down his cheeks. I nuzzled at his hand, worried about him. It wasn't right for Jacob to cry like this. Something needed to be done about it. So they're at a cemetery right now, and I don't know who Jacob is crying over. And Jacob says, "It's okay, Ellie. Good dog. Sit." I sat. Since I couldn't find Jacob or rescue him or do anything to help him, I just stayed next to him, feeling sad with him. He cleared his throat. "I miss you so much, honey. Sometimes I don't think I can get through the day knowing you're not going to be there when I get home," he whispered hoarsely. I lifted my ears at the word home. Yes, I thought, let's go home. Let's leave this sad place. But Jacob didn't move, and he kept on talking. "I'm on the canine patrol right now, search and rescue. I've got a dog. Her name is Ellie, a 1-year-old German Shepherd." I wagged my tail. "You'd like her, honey. I wish you could have met her. She is a good dog. She really is." I wagged harder. But Jacob didn't seem to notice me, even though he'd said my name and good dog. "We just got certified, so we'll be going out now. I'll be glad to get off the desk. I've gained about 10 pounds from all the sitting." Jacob laughed, and the sound of it was so peculiar that it nearly made me whimper. It was such a sad, tortured little laugh with no happiness in it at all. We stayed there, hardly moving at all, for about 10 minutes. Jacob seemed like one of the pieces of stone sticking out of the ground, hard and cold and motionless. Slowly the feeling I could sense in him shifted. It was less raw pain and more of a feeling sort of like a fear. I love you, Jacob whispered, and then he got up and walked away. I followed closely at his heels. So, who do you think Jacob is talking to at the cemetery? And that is chapter 6.